What if I told you that 3 months ago, Google's AI scored 31% on the hardest reasoning test ever created, and now it just hit 77%? That's not an upgrade. That's like your kid failing math in September and winning the National Math Olympiad by Christmas. Something fundamental just changed inside this machine. And what most people aren't seeing is why this changes everything, not just for Google, but for you. On February 19, 2026, Google quietly released Gemini 3.1 Pro. No flashy keynote, no Sundar Pichai on a stage with dramatic lighting, just a blog post and a technical model card. And yet, within 48 hours, every AI lab on the planet was scrambling to respond. When Google released Gemini 3.0 Pro back in November, it scored 31.1% on ARC-AGI-2, a benchmark designed to test whether AI can solve logic puzzles it has never seen before. No memorization tricks, no pattern matching from training data, pure reasoning. 31% was impressive at the time. 3 months later, 77.1%, verified independently by the ARC Prize Foundation. Now here's what most videos about this won't tell you. That jump from 31 to 77 isn't just a bigger number on a chart. It represents a fundamental shift in how the model thinks. And to understand why that matters, you need to understand something most people completely miss about modern AI. Section 1. The reasoning shift nobody's talking about. Most AI models today are sophisticated parrots. They've read the entire internet and remixed what they've seen into convincing answers. Ask something from their training data? Brilliant. Ask something genuinely new, a problem requiring reasoning from first principles. They fall apart like a cheap suit in a rainstorm. ARC-AGI-2 was built specifically to expose this. Every puzzle is unique. The AI cannot have seen it before. It has to think, identify abstract patterns, apply logical rules, construct solutions from scratch. Going from 31% to 77% means Google changed the architecture of how Gemini reasons. The old model memorized textbooks but froze when exam questions were different. The new model actually understands the subject. And Google did this in 90 days. Same Gemini 3 foundation, upgraded reasoning engine, more than doubled abstract thinking in a single quarter. If AI keeps improving at this rate, human-level reasoning could arrive within 18 to 24 months. That's not hype, that's math. Section 2. Real-world professional tasks. Benchmarks are nice for bragging rights, but what about real work? What about tasks that actual professionals do every single day? Enter Apex Agents, testing AI on long-horizon professional tasks, complex workflows requiring planning, memory, multiple tools, and multi-step strategies. Think a consultant analyzing a dataset, building a presentation, cross-referencing sources, delivering a recommendation, not a party trick, real work. Gemini 3.0 Pro scored 18.4%, Gemini 3.1 Pro 33.5%, nearly doubled. Claude Opus 4.6, Anthropic's most powerful model, scored 29.8%. OpenAI's GPT-5.2, just 23%. Then there's MCP Atlas, testing multi-step workflows using the Model Context Protocol. How well can AI chain tools and services together to complete complex tasks? Gemini 3.1, 69.2%. Claude Opus, 59.5%. GPT 5.2, 60.6%. Now here's what makes this terrifying for white-collar professionals. At 33.5% on Apex, Gemini 3.1 is already performing complex knowledge work at roughly the level of a competent junior analyst, and it does it in seconds, not hours, at near zero marginal cost. McKinsey estimated that 60% of all occupations have at least 30% of their tasks automatable by current AI, and that estimate was made before these agentic scores existed. Plain English, Gemini 3.1 is becoming the best AI agent in the world, not chatbot, agent, an AI that can do things across multiple systems, not just talk about them. And that distinction matters more than most people realize, because the future of AI isn't about answering questions, it's about completing tasks.
Let's continue with the Apple deal, the billion-dollar validation. Here's the angle that changes everything. Most tech channels treat this like a separate story. It's the same story. January 2026, Apple, the company that would rather ship a mediocre in-house solution than admit someone else does it better, signed a multi-year deal worth roughly $1 billion per year. The goal? Make Gemini the foundation of the new Siri. They evaluated OpenAI, they evaluated Anthropic, they evaluated their own models. They chose Google. Why? Because Siri's failure rate had hit 33%. 1 in 3 requests failed. At the same time, Apple was losing top AI researchers to competitors, with compensation packages crossing $200 million. So Apple did something it almost never does. It surrendered. This is the most expensive peer review in AI history. $1 billion a year isn't marketing, it's validation no benchmark can touch. The deal is white-labeled. Users think it's Siri. Under the hood, it's Gemini running on Apple's private cloud compute. Google never sees user data. Apple gets world-class AI brainpower. Google gets distribution across 2 billion devices, and OpenAI gets pushed down to an optional add-on. Here's what nobody is connecting. Gemini 3.1's improvements in reasoning and agentic capability are exactly what Apple needs. Context-aware responses, multi-step task execution, the ability to act on what's on your screen. This isn't coincidence. This is the model Apple is betting its entire AI future on. So what can it actually do? The demos show a model that thinks differently from anything else available. First, code-based animation. From a single text prompt, it generates website-ready SVG animations, pure code, not pixels. They stay crisp at any resolution and have tiny file sizes. Designers are already calling them production-ready. Next, complex system synthesis. One prompt produces a live ISS orbital tracker. It pulls real-time telemetry, configures data streams, and visualizes the orbit. This isn't a static graphic, it's a working application connected to live data. Then, interactive 3D with generative audio. A starling murmuration with hand tracking and a musical score that changes based on how the birds move. One prompt, one model. A complete sensory experience that would normally take a full team to build. And literary-to-code translation. Asked to design a portfolio inspired by Wuthering Heights, the model analyzed the novel's tone and atmosphere, then built a modern interface that captured its essence. It reasoned through literature and turned it into functional design. This isn't autocomplete on steroids. It's a model that understands context, aesthetics, physics, and systems architecture at the same time. Now look at the numbers, because they tell the real story. Across benchmarks, a clear pattern emerges. On humanity's last exam, one of the hardest academic reasoning tests, Gemini scores 44.4% without tools. Claude Opus hits 40. GPT-5.2 lands at 34.5. On GPQA Diamond, which measures graduate-level science knowledge, it scores 94.3%. On Terminal Bench 2.0, a test of real agentic coding, it hits 68.5%, beating every other model. On Live Code Bench Pro, competitive coding, it posts an ELO rating of 2887. GPT 5.2 sits at 2393. That's not a gap, that's a canyon. On BrowseComp, agentic search, Gemini scores 85.9% versus 65.8%. Its context window supports 1 million tokens in and 64,000 out. That's an entire code base, a full book, or an hour of video reasoned across coherently. It leads or ties for first in 13 of 18 major benchmarks. No model in history has dominated this broadly, across this many categories, at the same time. So what does this mean for you? The gap between AI as a novelty and AI as a professional tool just closed fast. Developers get code that writes, debugs, and deploys at a senior engineer level. Researchers get synthesis across massive bodies of work and hypothesis generation at scale. Business professionals get dashboards, market analysis, and presentations built directly from raw data. Here's the uncomfortable part. This is a preview. Google is still improving it. Today's version is the worst Gemini 3.1 will ever be. It's rolling out across AI Studio, Vertex AI, the Gemini app, Notebook LM, command line tools, Android Studio, and Google's new agentic platform, Anti-Gravity. This isn't a research demo. This is infrastructure. Google is treating Gemini as the foundational intelligence layer for everything it builds next. 3 months, that's all it took to double the reasoning power of the most advanced AI on Earth. 3 months to convince Apple, the most stubborn company in tech, to write $1 billion check. The question isn't whether AI is getting smarter, it's whether we're ready for how fast it's happening. Because Gemini 3.1 Pro isn't the finish line. According to Google, this is just the preview. And if the preview looks like this, imagine the final version.